Welcome back, everybody. Today, we're going to be taking a deep dive into, a pretty bold idea.
Yeah.
Could America actually function without any income tax?
Whoa.
And to help us unpack this, we're looking at former President Trump's recent proposal to abolish it.
Right.
And we're using some insights from an article on L Impact Solutions.
Okay.
Now, if you're not familiar, they're a website that helps businesses kind of solve problems, boost their profits.
Yeah, they're well known.
So their perspective is particularly interesting for this deep dive.
Definitely. And what's so fascinating about all this is that this isn't just some far out theory.
Right.
Trump actually laid out this proposal at the Republican Issues Conference.
Oh, wow.
And it's gotten a lot of people talking about what a tax-free paycheck would actually look like.
That's right. And the L Impact Solutions article really paints a vivid picture of that financial freedom.
Yeah.
No more federal income tax deductions, no more wrestling with those complicated state forms.
Right.
Just your whole paycheck landing right in your bank account.
Oh, yeah.
It's a pretty enticing thought.
It definitely is. It taps into, I think, a very human desire for simplicity and a sense of control over your own money.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's important to look beyond that initial, wow, more money reaction.
Right.
And really consider what the ripple effects might be.
Because even if it sounds amazing at first glance,
Yeah.
there's got to be more to the story.
There is.
This article actually acknowledges some potential downsides as well.
Exactly. One of the big questions is how do you actually fund essential services without income tax?
Right.
Think about it. Education, healthcare infrastructure.
Yeah.
These are all things that are largely funded by what we all pay in income taxes.
It's like the backbone of so much of our society.
It is.
So if that revenue stream just dries up,
Yeah,
something's got to fill that gap.
exactly. And that's where things get a little tricky.
Okay.
The article highlights a concern that shifting the tax burden could actually end up hitting lower income families the hardest.
Oh, wow.
Think about it. Maybe property taxes go up or sales taxes increase.
Right.
Suddenly that tax-free paycheck doesn't stretch as far as you thought it would.
Yeah, that's such an important point.
Yeah.
It's not as simple as just more money in my pocket.
No.
We really have to think about the potential consequences for everyone.
For everyone, and that's what I think is so interesting about this. The article frames this whole thing as a debate between financial freedom for individuals
Mm-hmm.
versus maintaining the public services that we all rely on.
Okay.
It really pushes you to examine your own values and priorities.
It really does.
Yeah.
Now, Trump's argument, as he laid it out at that conference, really centers on economic stimulation.
Okay.
His idea is that more disposable income is going to lead to more spending,
Right.
and that'll lead to job creation and just a booming economy overall.
Right. That's the classic supply-side economics theory.
Right.
And it's been hotly debated for decades.
Yeah.
Does putting more money directly into people's pockets actually translate into sustainable growth?
Uh-huh.
Or are there unintended consequences?
It feels like a gamble, honestly.
Yeah, it does a little bit.
And the LMPEC Solutions piece really underscores the need to be prepared.
Right.
Whether this proposal goes anywhere or not,
Yeah.
they actually have a whole section on practical steps that you can take.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, and they're all about being proactive,
Mm-hmm.
which I think is so crucial in this type of situation.
Yeah, for sure.
They recommend having a solid financial plan for individuals.
Okay,
Things like budgeting, saving, looking at your different investment options.
that makes sense.
For business owners, they suggest rethinking your pricing and maybe even your whole business model,
Oh, wow.
depending on how this all shakes out
So they're thinking long term.
long term. And it's interesting because they are known for helping businesses adapt and find opportunities in the middle of change.
Yeah.
Their website, www.lookytools.net, actually has tons of resources about this kind of stuff.
That's great to know. And their perspective on this whole tax situation is so valuable because of that experience. They've seen firsthand how businesses can thrive even when the rules of the game are completely changing.
So it's less about panicking and more about being informed and adaptable.
Absolutely. L Impact Solutions also emphasizes the importance of staying informed about any legislative changes that might be happening and getting involved in your community to advocate for solutions that actually work for everyone.
I love that perspective.
Yeah.
It's not just about personal gain.
No.
It's about how do we make this work for our communities as a whole?
Exactly. And that's where their expertise in navigating these complex economic issues really shines through.
Yeah.
They're not about helping businesses make a quick buck. It's about finding solutions that benefit everyone over the long term.
It feels like this whole conversation goes so far beyond just the numbers.
It does.
It's about our values, our priorities, what kind of future we want to build.
Yeah, it really makes you think.
It does.
What kind of society do we want to be?
Right.
And does abolishing income tax actually bring us closer to that or further away?
That's a great question.
Yeah, it's something to really ponder. Yeah, it really does make you think about the bigger picture, doesn't it? And to understand this debate better, I think it's helpful to look back at how income tax even came to be in the first place.
Oh, that's true.
It wasn't always a cornerstone of the American system.
Right. It feels so ingrained now, it's hard to imagine things being any other way.
Yeah, so what was the system like before?
Yep.
Well, before the early 20th century, the federal government relied mostly on tariffs and excise taxes.
Okay.
Those are taxes on specific goods or activities.
Right.
But as the Industrial Revolution really took off,
Yeah.
the economy just changed dramatically.
So there was this massive surge in wealth,
Exactly.
but it wasn't necessarily spread out very evenly.
Right, and that's what really raised those questions about fairness.
Mm-hmm.
Should the super wealthy be contributing more to the common good?
Right.
And there was also a growing need to fund things like social programs and major infrastructure projects.
Okay.
Income tax started to seem like a more viable solution.
It's so fascinating how those historical shifts really mirror some of the debates we're having today.
Yeah.
Like, is it fair for some people to shoulder a bigger tax burden than others?
Mm-hmm.
And how do we fund the things that benefit everyone in society?
Those are the questions that are always relevant, aren't they?
Yeah, they are.
And we've seen this kind of back and forth throughout history. I mean, think about the significant tax cuts during the Bush administration.
Okay.
They were designed to stimulate the economy,
Right.
but they also contributed to a growing deficit.
Right. So it's always a balancing act,
Always a balancing act.
weighing individual benefits against the needs of the collective.
Exactly. And it seems like L-Impact Solutions really gets that nuance.
Yeah.
With their focus on helping businesses navigate all this change.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned their website, www.lokitools.net, earlier.
Right.
What kind of resources do they have on this particular topic?
Well, they have a whole bunch of great articles and analyses on the potential impact of abolishing income tax.
Okay.
They look at it from all different angles. Oh, wow.
For example, they break down how it could affect specific industries,
Yeah.
and they even offer some practical strategies for adapting to what could be a very different economic landscape.
That's so valuable.
Yeah.
I mean, it's one thing to talk about these big ideas,
Yeah.
but it's another thing entirely to have actual advice on how to prepare.
Right, and their perspective is especially useful because they're not just a bunch of economists sitting in an ivory tower.
Mm-hmm.
They work directly with businesses on the ground,
Right.
helping them solve real-world problems and find opportunities.
So they've got that practical hands-on experience
Exactly.
that really backs up their insights.
It's not just theory. It's about what actually works in the real world.
Okay. Now, speaking of the practical side of things.
Yeah.
One of the main arguments for getting rid of income tax is that it would lead to a huge increase in consumer spending.
Right.
Trump seems pretty convinced about that.
He does, and
Yeah.
you can see why that argument would be so appealing.
Mm-hmm.
More money in people's pockets?
Right. Should theoretically mean more spending,
Yeah.
which could really jumpstart certain sectors of the economy.
Right.
But there's also the question of how people will actually use that extra money.
Yeah, it's not a guarantee that everyone's going to suddenly go on a shopping spree.
Right. Some people might save it.
Yeah.
Others might invest it.
It's exactly.
Mm.
It's hard to predict what the overall effect will be.
It's tough to say, and that's where things get really complex.
Okay.
I mean, think about it. Will businesses raise prices if they anticipate this surge in demand?
Oh, that's a good question.
How will inflation be impacted?
Right.
These are the kinds of questions that L-Impact Solutions helps businesses untangle.
Because they're all about understanding the ripple effects.
Exactly.
It's not just about one isolated change.
You're right.
It's about how that change interacts with the entire economic ecosystem.
Exactly. They're experts at anticipating those second and third order consequences,
Wow.
which can be just as important as the immediate effects.
So even if this proposal doesn't actually become reality, just thinking through these possibilities is valuable in itself.
Oh, for sure.
It forces businesses to really examine their strategies
Mm-hmm.
and prepare for all these different scenarios.
Absolutely. And L-Impact Solutions provides the tools and resources for businesses to do just that.
Through their website.
Yes. www.lokitools.net. They help you ask the right questions and develop plans that are resilient to change.
That's so smart.
Yeah.
Okay, so as we're thinking about all these potential shifts in the economy,
Yeah.
what are some of the key indicators we should be watching for?
That's a great question.
What are some of those telltale signs that things are headed in one direction or another?
Well, consumer confidence is a big one.
Okay.
Are people feeling optimistic about the economy?
Right.
Are they willing to spend money?
Mm-hmm.
That's a huge driver.
What?
And then there's inflation. Are prices rising too quickly?
Mm-hmm.
And of course, we have to look at job growth.
Right.
Are new jobs being created?
Yeah.
Are wages increasing?
So it's not just about the numbers on a spreadsheet.
Right.
It's about how people are actually experiencing the economy.
Exactly. It's that human element
Yeah.
that can sometimes get lost in these discussions.
Yeah, that's so important.
It is. We have to remember that economics isn't just about abstract theories.
Mm.
It's about people's lives, their livelihoods, their hopes and dreams.
And speaking of hopes and dreams, let's circle back to that idea of community engagement
Yes.
that L-Impact Solutions is always emphasizing.
Mm-hmm.
Why is that so important in this context?
Well, because when we're talking about something as fundamental as the tax system,
Right.
it can't just be a top-down decision that's imposed on everybody.
Yeah.
It needs to be a conversation that involves all the different stakeholders,
Mm-hmm.
individuals, businesses, community leaders.
It's about finding solutions that work for everyone, not just a select few.
Exactly. And that's something that L-Impact Solutions really champions.
Okay.
They believe that collaboration is key to navigating these complex challenges
Mhm.
and creating a more equitable and prosperous future for all.
It's about harnessing the collective wisdom and creativity of a community to find the best path forward.
Right.
And that's a really powerful message.
It is. It reminds us that we're all in this together.
Mm-hmm.
And that by
Yeah.
working together, we can create a future that benefits everyone. It's not just about the economics.
Right.
It's about building a better society.
It's funny how this conversation makes you question, like, assumptions that you didn't even know you had.
Yeah.
Like, I always just took income tax for granted.
Right.
It was just there.
Just part of life.
Yeah, but now I'm thinking about all these other ways we could structure things.
Yeah. It's like anything else. When you take a step back and you look at the system from a totally different angle,
Mm-hmm.
you start to see all these possibilities that you hadn't even considered before.
Right. And that could be a little unsettling,
Yeah.
but it's also kind of exciting.
It's exciting. It's intriguing.
And it reminds me of the question that you posed earlier.
Yeah.
Like, what are some of those unforeseen opportunities or challenges that might pop up
Right.
if income tax just disappeared?
Like, what if?
Yeah, it's a real head scratcher.
It is. Because we're not just talking about, a line item on a budget sheet.
Mm.
This is a fundamental shift in the relationship between citizens and the government.
Right.
It raises questions about the social contract, about individual responsibility,
Yeah.
and how we as a society decide to fund the things that we actually value.
What are we willing to put our money towards collectively?
Exactly.
And how does individual financial freedom play into that?
Yeah, and the L-Impact Solutions article does a great job of highlighting those tensions.
They do. They're not really advocating for one side or the other.
Right.
They're just laying out all the different perspectives,
And the angle.
the potential pluses and minuses.
Yeah.
And they're really encouraging people to think critically about this whole thing.
And to get informed.
Informed, exactly.
yeah.
And their website, www.lokitools.net,
Yes.
is a fantastic resource.
It is a great resource.
For anyone who wants to dig a little deeper.
Definitely, they have articles, analyses, even practical guides
Oh, wow.
for navigating those potential economic changes.
Okay, so they're really about empowering both individuals and businesses
Yes.
with the knowledge and tools to make good decisions,
Yeah.
no matter what the future holds.
Informed decisions, exactly.
So let's play that what-if game for a second.
Okay.
Imagine no income tax.
Okay. No income tax.
What are some of the opportunities that might come out of that?
Okay.
Besides the obvious more money in my pocket.
Well, for one, it could lead to a surge in entrepreneurship.
Really?
If people have more disposable income,
Yeah.
they might be more likely to take a risk and start a business.
Oh, that's interesting.
And that could create jobs, innovation, and economic growth.
Wow.
Yeah.
And wouldn't it simplify things for a lot of businesses too?
It would. No more dealing with all those complicated income tax forms,
Right.
all those regulations.
Right.
It could reduce the administrative burden on businesses significantly.
So they could really focus on what they do best.
Exactly, and maybe even become more competitive on a global scale.
But then there's the flip side,
Yeah.
those potential challenges. And I
Right.
think the biggest one, as we've been discussing,
Mm-hmm.
is the impact on those public services.
Absolutely. How do you fund things like education, healthcare, and infrastructure without that consistent stream of revenue from income tax?
Right.
It could lead to some really tough decisions
Yeah.
about where to cut spending,
Right.
or it could mean raising other taxes,
Yeah.
which could then disproportionately impact people who are already struggling.
It's that classic trade-off, isn't it?
It is.
Individual gain versus the well-being of the whole.
That's the big question.
And there's no easy answer.
Not at all.
But I think the L-Impact Solutions approach is spot on.
I agree.
Like, let's get everyone informed. Let's consider every angle of this thing. And let's have an open and honest conversation about what we want our future to look like.
Exactly. And that's what I find so valuable about their work.
Yeah.
They're not just about crunching numbers and making predictions.
Right.
They're about helping people navigate these really complex situations and make decisions that actually align with their values and their priorities.
They're not telling you what to think.
No.
They're giving you the tools to think for yourself,
Exactly.
which is so important.
It is empowering.
Now, zooming out a little bit,
Okay.
the U.S. isn't the only country wrestling with these questions about tax policy.
That's right. It's a global conversation.
All over the world, governments are trying different things.
Yeah.
Flat taxes, value-added taxes, progressive systems, experimenting. Exactly.
Yeah.
And it just goes to show that there's no one-size-fits-all solution.
Right. Every country has its own unique context, its own set of challenges.
Yeah.
What works in one place might not work somewhere else.
Exactly. But the important thing is that we're having these conversations,
Yes.
that we're challenging those assumptions,
Keeping an open mind.
and that we're always looking for ways to make the system better.
More fair. More
Equitable for everyone.
for everyone, exactly.
Well, I think we've officially reached the bottom of our deep dive into this whole tax-free America idea.
I think so.
We've explored all the possibilities, the potential problems, the historical context.
I went deep.
We did. And all those big philosophical questions that are really at the heart of this whole debate.
And hopefully we've given our listeners some things to think about.
Yeah, some food for thought.
Some new perspectives.
And some resources to keep digging into this topic.
Absolutely, because it's fascinating.
It is. And a huge thanks to L-Impact Solutions,
Yes.
whose insights were so valuable to this conversation.
They really were.
Don't forget to check out their website, www.lokitools.net,
Yes, lots of great stuff there.
for more in-depth analysis and practical advice.
Definitely.
So as we resurface from this deep dive,
Back to the surface.
back to the surface,
It's back to reality.
I hope you're feeling a little more informed,
Yeah.
a little more engaged,
More engaged, for sure.
and maybe even a little more empowered to participate in these big conversations.
Absolutely, because ultimately the future is something that we create together.
Well said. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive,
It was my pleasure.
and we'll see you next time
See you next time.
for another exploration of the ideas that are shaping our world.